That was the 1981 classic Frame by Frame by King Crimson off the album Discipline. I've seen a lot of people talk about the guitar parts here, but I want to dive a little deeper into the rhythm and chords of this song because there's some really interesting stuff happening here. If you want access to the sheet music from this lesson as well as from all of my other lessons, you can join my Patreon or become a channel member here on YouTube. I'm also available for private lessons if you'd like some more in-depth instruction. Links to all of that is in this video's description. Now, this song is actually pretty simple from a structural standpoint. There's only two sections in the song. You have the main riff, or what I'm going to call the chorus, and this part's in 4/4, and then you have the verses, which are in 7/8 or 7/4, and there's only vocals in the verses. This song has two really great examples of polymeter, or more than 1 meter or time signature happening at the same time. The main feature of the chorus is this fast pentatonic lick played by Robert Fripp. It's the first 4 notes of the C-sharp minor pentatonic scale looped in a circular 6-note pattern. This is the whole thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, this is a pretty simple pattern, but it's incredibly tricky to play because of how fast it is and how long it lasts. I think at the beginning, it's about 1.5 minutes. I did it there in my cover at the beginning, and my left hand was starting to burn by the end there. It's almost like a workout where you're lifting weights or something. Just, it's the same thing over and over again. You're really straining that muscle. So this is a great exercise to practice. You can do it for, as long as you can. And as I said, the left hand's actually probably harder than the right hand, even though the picking is tricky. But just doing this over and over again, even at a slower speed, definitely a good exercise, but as you speed it up, it gets harder and harder, and you have to do that for, 1 minute straight, which is pretty crazy. Now, this is played as 16th notes, and obviously this 6-note pattern is not going to fit into a measure of 4/4 very nicely. So what happens is this guitar lick cycles around the 4/4 time signature, only lining up every 3 bars. So the guitar here is in 3/4, while the rest of the band is in 4/4, and this lick creates this kind of perpetual motion sort of sound where it's almost like a synthesizer arpeggiator that's creating this soundscape over top of the groove. Fripp was very influenced by the minimalist composers of the time, Steve Reich, Philip Glass, etc. And those guys used a lot of repetition in their music to great effect, and we're going to see an even cooler example of this later on. Underneath this riff are the chords played by Adrian Belew. And this is a C-sharp minor 11 chord, moving to a C-sharp minor 6. Or you could look at this as being an F-sharp 7 over C-sharp. He's also playing the low E string here. And every once in a while he does this fun little whammy bar dip. But But this is a classic Dorian sound. So we have this minor arpeggio. We get the major 6. Once the groove kicks in, the bass, or really a Chapman stick, played by the great Tony Levin, is playing a C sharp. In the intro, he's playing a lot of E's, which gives you kind of a Lydian sound. But this really sounds like Dorian through most of this, especially because he's grooving on that C sharp later on. Then it moves up a minor third to E Dorian. In guitar terms, I'm just going to take these same shapes up 3 frets. And this is a classic prog move and something that King Crimson does a lot. I call these direct key changes, where you take a riff or a pattern and you move it to a different key with no real transition between those keys. A minor third is probably the most common interval you'll see with a direct key change, but you can do any interval, really. I actually use the minor third one myself quite a bit, probably too much, but it's a really nice sound. When it moves up to E, the guitar lick from earlier also moves up a minor third or 3 frets. And at this point it starts over, so we kind of lose the 6-note sequence there. I don't remember where it ends. I think it might be like something like that. And then from here we're actually going to move up another minor third to G Dorian. The lick moves too. And then from here, 1 half step up to G sharp Dorian. So we have C sharp Dorian, E Dorian, G Dorian, and G sharp Dorian. This is a great example of direct key changes and also a really great use of the Dorian mode. This is impressive, it's groovy, just an awesome intro to a song. That brings us to the verse section and the infamous guitar polymeters. What's happening here is that the 2 guitars play the same riff, and then Fripp's part changes rhythms, and the guitars get out of sync, kind of like they're phasing or there's a weird delay on them. Or it's like those videos on social media where someone's playing the same riff at 2 different tempos and they're slowly getting off from each other. It kind of feels like that. This sounds incredibly complicated and it's kind of weird to play, but what's actually happening here from a construction standpoint isn't that insane. Here's the main guitar part played by Baloo. This is a 7-note pattern using a classic 7/8 rhythm divided as 2, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. This is actually the first thing I ever taught on the Prog School in my first video was this rhythm. It's basically instant prog. I have it written here in 7/4, so 2 of these patterns will fit into 1 bar. I think it's just a little bit easier to read that way, and the drums and bass are more focused on the quarter notes here, but it is a 7/8 pattern. Now here's Fripp's part. What happens here is on the 4th repeat of this riff, he cuts off a single 8th note from the end, and then from there, every other time he plays this riff, he cuts off that 8th note. So you have a pattern that's 7 notes and then 6 notes, or 13 8th notes in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now on its own, this doesn't sound that weird, but when you combine it with the other guitar, which is just continuously doing that 7/8, you get this. So the whole band is in 7, except Robert Fripp, who's in 13/8. But because of where he starts the 13/8, he plays the 13/8 pattern 5 times, and then it's back in sync with the other guitar. And then from there, they're going to play together. Now, this sounds just absolutely nuts, but it's really satisfying when these two guitars sync back up. This idea really draws from those minimalist composers. They would do this kind of thing often, where you have multiple instruments playing a steady pattern, and then they slowly get off from each other and then eventually kind of sync back up. It's such an interesting and different kind of sound for prog. You hear polymeters a lot in this style of music, but they're usually more like the one we heard at the beginning of the song, where it's a little bit more straightforward. You hardly ever hear them this abrupt and jarring, but it's a really unique and interesting sound. What's happening harmonically in the verse is great as well. We're in F sharp minor here. This guitar riff is all coming from F sharp minor pentatonic. I guess you'd call this an F sharp minor 11 chord. We've already heard a bunch of these minor 11 chords in the first part of the song. And over top of this same riff, we have different bass notes. Start on F sharp, then D, and then B. The D underneath makes this D major 7 sound, and then the B makes a B9 sound. And this is a great example to explain how I analyze this type of harmony. None of the instruments here are playing full chords, so I'm going to use the guitar, bass, and the vocals to inform my analysis here. We're in F sharp minor, and we just played the note D in the bass. So if I played this B chord, just the guitar and bass, I might assume it's a B minor chord because we've already seen a D. But if I look at the vocals, the vocal line goes D sharp, B, A, which spells out a B7 chord. Have that major third. And the guitar is playing C sharps, which is the 9th. So that's going to inform that this is a B9 chord. Right? I want to take into account every instrument in an arrangement when I'm figuring out the harmony. In this case, the vocals are spelling out a lot of the harmony here. They're singing a lot of chord tones. And so after the B, we have these last 2 chords. The guitar changes here. Same pattern, just a couple of different notes. And the bass underneath does a G, and then a G sharp. If I put all this together, this next chord is a G7 sharp 11, or a G9 sharp 11. And our last chord is a C sharp 7 over G sharp. C sharp 7 is the 5 chord in the key of F sharp minor, so that makes sense. You'll often see a 5 chord at the end of a progression. This G9 sharp 11 is a tritone sub for the 5 chord. A tritone substitution is a classic jazz trick where you replace the dominant 5 chord with a dominant 5 chord a tritone away. In the key of F sharp minor, our 5 chord is C sharp, dominant 7, and a tritone away from that is G7. So you can replace that chord, like in a 2-5, replace the 5 chord with that tritone sub. Now, you don't always hear the tritone sub and the normal 5 chord back to back, but it does happen sometimes, and that's kind of what's happening here. So this entire progression then moves up a minor third, another one of these direct key changes, and I think this makes the bass part from before make even more sense. So you have G, G sharp, and then we move to the key of A minor. So you have this nice rising chromatic bass line. It makes the key change a little bit smoother. Now, the melody and chord progression in this second half of the verse are exactly the same as the first half, just up a minor third in the key of A minor. There's one small difference. Robert Fripp holds these chords over the D9 chord. He lets this chord ring. And then after this section in A minor, it goes back to the chorus. And that's really the entire song. It does the chorus and verse again, and then another chorus. And then at the end, we get the polymetric guitar part again. It moves up a minor third. And Robert Fripp at the very end does this shreddy 16th note pattern. And the song ends. So there you have it, some crazy 80s King Crimson. I love this song. I think the mood and groove of it are absolutely amazing. It's technical, but it's also beautiful and surprisingly catchy for how complicated it is. King Crimson is kind of hit and miss for me, but I think this song is a definite hit. As I mentioned, if you want the sheet music for this, you can join my Patreon or become a channel member here on YouTube. And remember to hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, stay proggy.